Reading the purport to Srila Prabhupada's rendition of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 28, texts 35 and 36. Srila Prabhupada writes, "We can definitely see that to advance in Krishna consciousness, one must control his bodily weight. If one becomes too fat, it is to be assumed that he is not advancing spiritually." Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur severely criticized his fat disciples. The idea is that one who intends to advance in Krishna consciousness must not eat very much. Devotees used to go to forests, high hills, or mountains on pilgrimages, but such severe austerities are not possible in these days. One should instead eat only prasad and no more than required. According to the Vaishnav calendar, there are many fasts, such as Ekadashi and the appearance and disappearance days of God and his devotees. All of these are meant to decrease the fat within the body so that one will not sleep more than desired and will not become inactive and lazy. Overindulgence in food will cause a man to sleep more than required. This human form of life is meant for austerity, and austerity means controlling sex, food intake, etc. In this way, time can be saved for spiritual activity, and one can purify himself both externally and internally. Thus, both body and mind can be cleansed. Why in particular am I talking about this? Why did I choose to speak on this? Recently, I resumed my normal itinerant mode of life, traveling, after more than 2 years of lockdowns and sickness. And one thing I saw in more than one place was several Brahmacaris who were clearly overweight, fat Brahmacaris. Not many. It's not that every Brahmachari is fat. And it might be understandable after the lockdowns if one is a little overweight due to less getting out and about. It's not a big thing, but I'm talking about Brahmacharis who are really noticeably corpulent, pudgy, weighty, whatever you want to call it. By the way, if you don't know what a Brahmacari is, some of the listeners here might not know, it's a monk within the Vedic tradition. Now, Srila Prabhupada, he encouraged newcomers to Krishna consciousness, especially those in the sensual Western world. He encouraged them to eat a lot. He would personally cook and feed and encourage the devotees to eat plenty, and maybe even more than their physical need. But we should go beyond that stage. One who's wearing saffron cloth, it indicates, it's symbolic, it indicates someone who is dedicated to a life of abstemiousness for the sake of spiritual advancement. As Lord Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita, it's a basic principle for everyone who practices yoga. Natyashnatastu yogosti nachaikantamanashnataha nachati svapna shilasya jagrato naiva charjuna. One cannot become a yogi if one eats too much, or eats too little, or sleeps too much, or sleeps too little. Yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapnavabodhasya, yogo bhavati dukkhaha. One can overcome all miseries by practice of the yoga system, specifically by being controlled in one's eating, activities, recreation, sleeping. Now, devotees should be active in Krishna's service, but they should also see to their fitness and health. To be very much overweight, apart from anything else, it looks inappropriate for someone who's supposed to be a spiritualist, and it's not good for health. We see so many brahmacharis living in our temples have digestive problems because they tend to eat a lot, and in some places the prasadam served is cooked with a lot of oil. They eat a lot, and they don't have a lot of active service to burn it off. And so many of them have digestive problems which lead to so many other problems. Especially brahmacharis, the saffron cloth is supposed to indicate a very serious commitment. There's no harm if devotees, especially on a feast day, if they get into the spirit of the feast. It's not that we're Mayavadis and we don't enjoy taking Krishna's prasad, but we shouldn't get into an enjoying spirit. This is for me to enjoy. We should remember that I'm eating to maintain the body for Krishna's service. Eat to live, not live to eat. Ideal for a brahmachari is eat less, sleep less, work more for Krishna. For grihastas, well, they earn money or they make their own income, and if they eat nicely, well, that's okay, it's up to them. They have a license for sense gratification. Taking prasad is not supposed to be sense gratification, but Srila Prabhupada does mention in one purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita in the matter of Advaita Acharya inviting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu to take prasad at his home just after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taken sannyas. So Srila Prabhupada mentions that the luxurious items, the Mahaprasad, that is suitable for grihastas, less so for sannyasis. So the grihastas, they have a license for sense gratification, but even for them to tank up the body, overfill the body, you should get beyond that stage. In the beginning, and especially when you're young, it's one thing, but brahmachari life is always associated with austerity. Srila Prabhupada would often quote from the Bhagavatam, tapasyena brahmacharyena, these two things, austerity and brahmachari life, they're complementary. Tapasya, austerity, and brahmachari life are complementary. It is contradictory to brahmachari life I'm saying this because I saw some brahmacharis who were really grossly, noticeably, well over the bodily weight that they would be if they just ate a moderate diet. They're clearly, regularly eating too much. Just a few of them. It's not that it's everyone, but just a few. But still, it's worth pointing out because we've taken to Krishna consciousness, and we came to Krishna consciousness, hopefully, idealistically. We should maintain that idealism when we're young, it's easy to be idealistic. As life goes on, we may become less so as the reality of this world becomes more and more apparent to us. But without being idealistic, without striving for the aim of pure devotional service, what is the meaning of being a brahmachari in Krishna consciousness? One devotee told me he was just joining a temple in India, and a senior brahmachari asked him, "Why do you want to join? Why do you want to be a brahmachari?" And the brahmachari said, "Well, I'm inspired by Srila Prabhupada's books. I want to follow that ideal." And the senior brahmachari said, "Yeah, why do you want to be a brahmachari for?" And then he said, "Well, I'm a brahmachari all these years. I can't complain too much. I have my own room with air conditioning." And the devotee who was hearing this was thinking, "Wait a minute, that's not what I'm aiming for, that when I'm older I'll be respected as senior and have my own room with air conditioning. I want to be the kind of brahmachari that we read about in Srila Prabhupada's books." At least in India we do have several thousand brahmacharis, so that's something good. And most of them, from what I can see, are very serious. But we have to be careful not to become complacent and relax and just come down to a platform where it would appear that someone who's going overweight, their priorities are not properly adjusted. We have so many brahmacharis in India. In the West, seems to be an endangered species, picking up again gradually in many places. In some places, it's picking up. Let it be picked up more. I wonder if the number of brahmacharis or the enrollment of brahmacharis in India would drop if the situation of unemployment, mass unemployment of young, educated people, I wonder if that would affect the number of brahmacharis we're enrolling. In other words, it may be that one reason some people are becoming brahmacharis is they don't have anything else to do. If they had a good job, so-called good job, they might be less enthusiastic to become a brahmachari. Yeah, it's easy for me to talk about all these things because I could eat all day and I'd never get fat. I have such a bodily constitution. I'd get sick because I can't digest so much food. Some people, they eat a lot and they remain thin. Other people, they eat a little and they eat a little bit too much and they go overweight. So in that sense, it's easy for me to talk about. But Srila Prabhupada's talking about it also, as we see in this purport. So just a little cautionary word there for brahmachari. As a general principle for all devotees is to keep our edge in Krishna consciousness, keep our spirit strong, not succumb to desires for sense gratification in the name of Krishna consciousness. Keep straight on the path. The path is going back to Godhead. Let's go. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha.